Wardrobe for the Bass Tour Anglers podcast is provided by Koppel Outfitters. Go have an adventure. Visit them online at www.koppeloutfitters.com and on social media at Koppel Outfitters. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our trending segment. One of my great hobbies that I spend a lot of time with these days, especially with COVID, is watching pros put their content out there. And I love the struggle. I love to see how these guys are coming along in their pro careers. Our guest today has been chronicling his attempts to make it into the world of professional fishing for a couple of years now. His YouTube channel, Matt Luna Fishing, has over 350 videos consisting of tournament coverage, fishing tips, lure building, all kinds of good stuff. You can get lost in that channel. He's got a legion of loyal followers on YouTube that he lovingly refers to as Luna-tics. Matt, Luna, welcome to the show. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You were one of the first people that I discovered a couple of years back via Instagram and also YouTube. And your move to become a professional fisherman is something that I find it's very honest. You share the good times, you share the bad times. And you've also built quite a following. Was this the plan from day one to build a following as you went along? Because you've got a great following.
Yeah, 100%. That was the plan. My plan from the get-go when I started the whole Matt Luna Fishing Instagram page, Facebook page, YouTube channel, the whole thing was specifically to get a following, because I knew that trying to make it in the fishing industry was going to be really expensive, and to try to fish all the tournaments and everything that you need to do in order to get the experience and have the opportunity to actually make it in the tournament world, I knew that I was going to need some of that sponsor backing. So I did go into it with the approach of trying to build a following, so that way I would have something to offer sponsors or potential sponsors down the road.
Yeah, making yourself marketable is a big part of this business, and winning is nice, and when it comes, it'll be a great thing. But sponsors, as you say, they're concerned about people you can influence, and you can't necessarily influence people with just a win. You've got to have that business background. You really seem to be ahead in that part of the game. What aspects of promotion did you have to learn? Editing, photography, what kinds of things did you have to learn how to do?
I think I just kind of learned it on the fly. In the beginning stages, I didn't really know what I was doing at all on YouTube, and I'm still trying to figure it out a little bit. But I knew that with Instagram, it was short videos and pictures and all of that kind of stuff. So I kind of just knew that that's what I needed to do. And what I've started doing is I'm taking my videos that I put on YouTube, and that's where my photos come from. That's where my short video clips come from, is from the stuff that I'm capturing on my fishing trips. So I'm trying to repurpose that content as much as possible, so that way I can, put out as much content as I can, because I try to put out the most possible for me. I know there's people that put out more, there's people that put out a lot less. It just it depends. But I did have to learn how to edit. I did have to learn how to, talk on camera. I had to learn how to, figure out what people wanted to watch, what they wanted to see on Instagram, what they want to see on YouTube. And Instagram was something that I figured out pretty quick on how to build a following. It's a lot harder to do now. But even if you got into it, 6, 7, 8 years ago, it was easier to build a following back then too.
Tell us a little bit about your background. You from the San Diego area. I know you fished some team events down there. Is that where you is that where your roots are? And is that how you've kind of come up or?
So I started off fishing with my dad. I think like a lot of people did, or some relative that got them into fishing. And for me, it was my dad. And I fished on and off as a kid. We'd go trout fishing. We'd go bass fishing. We didn't really know what we were doing, but we were out there having a good time. And if we caught a fish, great. If we didn't catch a fish, it was just part of the game. And as I got older, my main focus became baseball. I played baseball all through college and everything. And I fished here and there throughout that entire time. But baseball was for sure the focus. And once baseball started to kind of fade away towards the end of my college career, I really started getting back into fishing. And eventually, it's kind of an interesting story. A buddy of mine I met through a fishing website, sdfish.com. I was selling a fishing rod on their webpage and in their classified section, and ended up selling a rod to a local guy here. And we ended up becoming friends, and eventually started fishing team tournaments out here. And that's what kind of got me into the whole tournament fishing realm. And, now I've kind of started fishing all the pro-am stuff, and I'll occasionally jump in a team tournament here in San Diego.
Okay, so now your background, you mentioned college. Did you study marketing? Did you study promotion, that kind of stuff? What's your education background?
I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, but I didn't go into that with the purpose of fishing or anything like that. Basically, my goal when I was going to college was to play baseball. That was what my focus was at the time. I had to pick a major. From the ones that were offered, psychology seemed the most interesting to me, so that's kind of why I chose it. I don't know that I use that degree at all to make myself more marketable or to connect with people more. I think I just try to be myself and just try to figure out what people want to see.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that we get from going to college is we get the idea that we can pretty much do anything that we want to do. And I think that's a good place to be rooted in. Now, when you have added other aspects to the fishing, like the photography, I want to ask you, do you fly your own drone? Because those drone shots that you have are really, they look professional. And I'm just wondering if that's you flying that, or is that somebody else?
That is me flying the drone. Whenever the drone is up there, that is me flying it. I would love to have somebody that could fly the drone for me, especially at tournaments and stuff, because there's a lot of stuff that you could capture at tournaments with the drone, and just different footage that I can't capture on my own without buying really, really expensive drones, because the sky's the limit when it comes to drone costs. I have, just I think it's the Mavic Air or something. I think the DJI Mavic Air or something. It's one of the lower end ones, but it still gives out a good picture, and I can still get some of that drone footage that I want for the videos. I don't fly it as much as I should, and I'd like to get a lot better at maneuvering it and trying to move camera angles and stuff, because I think it would be beneficial for the viewer, and I think it would be more appealing for the viewer. But my main focus is the fishing, so that's what I personally focus on. But there are some things that I definitely could improve in when it comes to the videography.
Well, I mean, I think part of the charm is the authenticity of it. I mean, it's great looking at something that's professionally done, but it's also very cool to see a grassroots production, and I think that's part of the charm. We're talking to Matt Luna. He is a YouTube star, and he's also an angler. It's on his way up through the various tours. As I've watched and as I've followed your career, it seems like you have really dialed in this business side of the equation well. I'm sure you feel like you could probably do better, but I just watching the growth has been impressive. This part of the game is a part that many pros miss, and there's a lot of really strong anglers out there that have not made it because they don't get this side of the equation. Do you see this as an advantage as you go forward, having learned what you've learned at this point?
I think that any sponsor backing that you have as you're going through the process is only going to benefit you at the end of once you attain that goal. Because whenever with the fishing, if you're going to try to fish professionally in the tournament world, because I mean, there's different avenues to fish professionally, in my opinion, now with YouTube and social media and everything like that. But if you're trying to go the tournament route and you accomplish that by qualifying through, the Toyota Series or through the Bassmaster Opens or whatever, there's a price tag to accomplishing that, and entry fees and travel and boats and tackle and all of those different things. And you're going to need support of all those companies. So one of the things that I know, just to try to get there, I was going to need some help in order to fish the events that I fish now and definitely in the future. So I think that that's been part of the whole process, but it's not so much what can they give me, because sponsorship's not all about that. That's part of it, but a sponsorship needs to be beneficial to both parties. if you're not selling product for that company and you're not achieving what they want out of you, then that sponsorship's going to go away, and it's not going to be long lasting. And the goal of sponsorship is really to sell product for them. And if you're able to do that, then that sponsorship's going to grow.
Absolutely. And I think that's what a lot of people miss out on, especially as they're coming up through the ranks. Okay. What would you say has been your biggest challenge to this point? What do you see as either a roadblock or something that has made it a tougher transition for you?
I mean, the hardest part so far has really been the fishing side of it for me. I feel like I'm articulate enough that I can, write emails and contact people. I think I know how to communicate in a professional way, and stuff like that. So on the business side of it, I'm not saying I'm an expert on that by any means, but I think I've gotten a little bit of a grasp on it. And I think I know enough that I know kind of what people are looking for and what I need to do in order to, fulfill my side of the bargain, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I really need to improve on the fishing side of things, and I need to really gain that tournament experience. I think one of my biggest downfalls for me right now is my practice. I need to get better at practice, not so much practice like away from tournaments, but those 3 or 4 days that you have prior to the tournament where you're trying to put your plan together and learning how to adjust to different weather conditions and fishing pressure. Because I think that if you're not learning things in practice, even if you have a horrible practice, you still need to be learning. And if you're not doing that, then you're still going into the tournament blind after fishing 3 or 4 days on the same lake.
Yeah, and I would imagine, because I know this was my experience. My experience was that you get into a tour and they put you on 4 lakes that you've never been on. At least that was from my experience. And you get there and you got to try to figure something out in a short amount of time. And it's a real challenge. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, for example, I went to Sam Rayburn for the Toyota series. I'd never even seen Sam Rayburn or anything like that prior to going out there, obviously beforehand. And it was a last minute decision, so I didn't have time to do a bunch of research. I was supposed to go to Lake Shasta for the Western Toyota Series event. It got postponed. So a buddy of mine and I decided to make the trip out to Texas and go fish the Toyota Series event out there. So we literally made that decision a day or two before we ended up needing to leave to drive out there. And so I had basically no research, no Google Earth waypoints or anything like that I could even go and check. So I did some phone calls, some YouTube stuff while I was driving out there to try to figure things out. But Sam Rayburn's a huge lake. It's not the easiest to navigate because there's stumps and trees all over the lake that you can hit. So it kind of makes it somewhat intimidating because you don't want to travel, halfway across the United States and take out a lower unit on your first day of practice or something like that. And, and then you still have to figure out how to find some fish. And it's a grass fishery for the most part. I mean, there is offshore fishing for sure. And that's how a lot of people win out there, but there's a lot of hydrilla and milfoil and stuff like that out there. And that's not something that I fish a lot out here. So 1, I had to learn a new lake. And then 2, I was fishing conditions that I wasn't used to fishing or cover that I wasn't used to fishing.
This segment is brought to you in part by Swim Baits Plus. Are you looking for that hard to find swim bait? Are you looking for that impossible rare color? Are you looking for great prices? Visit them on Instagram at @SwimBaitsPlus.
We're talking to Matt Luna, and if you want to see a really interesting video, I recommend going to his YouTube channel, Matt Luna Fishing, and take a look at his Sam Rayburn video. That's really kind of what sparked my attention. I said, "Oh, I got to talk to you because that was a bold move." I'm wondering, are you kind of branching out and wanting to see more of the country and do this, or it's just because one event was canceled?
Mostly it was because one event was canceled. I dabbled with the idea of doing the Bassmaster Opens this year, and they don't come anywhere near California with the Bassmaster Opens right now. So I knew that I'd be traveling to Texas or Oklahoma or something like that. So it wasn't completely out of the realm of possibility, but it wasn't planned whatsoever to go out to Texas and fish. It was really last minute. It was basically because Shasta got canceled. But since we went out there, there's a good possibility I might be at Texoma and Rayburn again for those final two for that division, and then still maybe fish, at least one of the West Coast Toyota Series events too. It's kind of up in the air, but there's a good possibility I'll finish out that series since we started it.
Okay, I like I said, it was really a neat thing to watch. I especially wanted to talk to you about your pre-fish, your practice, because that that Sam Rayburn is massive, and grass beds look the same, and you got to know the differences and things like that. I wanted to see in your mind how you approach this practice. Did you have 3 days or 4 days to practice on that lake?
I had 4 days. One of my days got cut short because when I was driving out there, my truck had some issues, so I had to take it to the dealership while I was out there. So it got cut short a little bit in the morning one day. But I did have 4 days pretty much to go out there and practice, and I had no idea what to expect. I talked to some people that live out in Texas, and they all kind of told me, "Hey, you need to fish shallow," and I think that they were right. That was the right advice for somebody from out of town to go out there and try to fish. I think fishing shallow was the right move, and I think it was good advice. For me, I fished too shallow still. I think that there was a big cold front that came in, so practice happened, and I was fishing shallow. I also looked for a few different offshore spots, and I ended up having one that I found on the first day of practice where I caught a 6-pounder on a Carolina rig. And that video is out right now. Some of my Rayburn stuff still coming out. It'll next couple weeks, everything will be out all the way through the tournament. But the first day of practice, I caught a good 3-pounder shallow on a chatterbait, and then I caught a 6-pounder on an offshore spot. And it was just this big rocky island, and it looked like something that I would fish out here because everybody I talked to said the offshore stuff's totally different than what you fish out, in San Diego on the West Coast. So I kind of was writing it off, but I pulled up on this area and I was like, you know what? That looks like something I know how to fish. So I graphed it, found a rock pile, saw some fish on it, casted the Carolina rig out there, just like I would do here at home, and ended up catching a 6-pounder. Didn't really fish it anymore after that. I checked it on the last day of practice and then it got bit again, but I didn't catch the fish on purpose, and was hoping for that spot to definitely hold up and produce. But going back to the shallow stuff where I was, people were like, hey, you need to really, fish shallow, is when in my mind, it was fish the bank. It was, fish the bank shallow like we do here. But at Rayburn, the depth is a lot different than it is here. Where I live, there's pretty much steep banks. Where there, it's a lot different, where there's a lot of flats. There's a lot more gradual banks, and that grass will grow a lot further offshore than it would here. And they have true creek channels that run in and out of all their different creeks, where we don't really have true creek channels that really are defined like they are there, where you can graph over a creek channel there and you see the drop off into the creek channel and then you see it come right back up. So here we don't have that defined of a creek channel. And what I was missing is those fish were on that outside grass edge close to the creek channel. Whenever there was a bend in the creek channel, if you would cast out and fish in, basically sit shallow and kind of cast out or fish parallel to that grass line and bring whatever you were fishing towards that grass line, that's when you would get bit, and that's how you could catch some of the better quality. And when we had a huge cold front come through the last day of practice and the first day of the tournament, I think some of those shallow fish might have moved out into that deeper grass. And I'm talking about like the bank to 5, 6, 7 feet. So it's still shallow, but they were in that deeper grass and they weren't up on the bank anymore. And I didn't make that adjustment.
Oh, well, I mean, that's fascinating stuff, but I mean, lots of lessons learned there. Yeah, you should probably go back and fish those next ones, because I'm sure a lot of those lakes set up similarly. When I was wondering, when you prepare for an event, do you do a lot of search bait? Do you use a lot of search baits like crankbaits, maybe swim baits, things like that, or you said you caught that one fish on a chatterbait? Was that just kind of a search mode you were doing there?
For the most part, yeah. I was just fishing a big flat in the back of one of the major creek arms that they have out there at Rayburn. And with those flats, there's a lot of grass on the flats, but in this area in particular, there was a lot of isolated grass patches. There were certain areas where you could get in. It was there was just grass everywhere. But that chatterbait fish came out of an isolated grass patch because I could feel the chatterbait go into the grass patch and then come out of the grass patch. And anytime you're fishing grass, a chatterbait's a really good option because it comes through that grass really, really well. But it's also a really good search bait. So it kind of like was perfect for like that Rayburn kind of a fishery because it has the grass. You need to cover a lot of water. It's really big. And this time of year, a lot of times if you're fishing in an area and you get bit, you can catch more fish in that area. So if you could cover water with the chatterbait and get a bite and then slow down and fish a little bit more thoroughly, that's a good option. So that's what I was trying to do. And I was just trying to figure out how to get bit because that was literally the first day of practice. So I was just trying to figure out what baits can I throw to get bit. And I had a chatterbait tied up from the first day of practice all the way through the tournament because I did get bites on it every day. But the tournament still didn't end up going very well for me.
Now, that you mentioned the chatterbait I know that you do some work with Sixth Sense. Is that their bladed jig that you're using in that situation, or?
No, it's not. They don't have a bladed jig right now. So I was using the jackhammer. I did have a Sixth Sense swim bait on there as the trailer for the chatterbait. And it's the Divine swim bait is what it's called by Sixth Sense. And it makes a pretty good chatterbait trailer. Sometimes with trailers, I also have used like a beaver style trailer, the Sixth Sense prawn. It's a beaver style bait that they have, and I rig it vertically. So like basically to make the beaver style tail on it look like a little bluegill type of a tail, and I'll put it on a green pumpkin chatterbait with the green pumpkin prawn, and it kind of gives a real tight little action to it. And it's actually a really good chatterbait trailer, surprisingly. I fished it at one of the lower Colorado River, which is a couple hours from me, and the chatterbait bite was really good out there, and I was able to catch some fish doing it. I was pretty surprised that trailer worked so well.
Okay, very good, very good. Now, I really find myself enjoying the lure making videos that you've created. Talk about your work with Do It Molds. Do you make all your own jig heads and drop shot weights, and or that's all stuff that you build with those molds?
So I don't make all of my own stuff. I've made drop shot weights. I've made jigs. I do make my own spinner baits. I do fish my own jigs, but I also fish Sixth Sense jigs sometimes. I also, will fish other products at times too. I make my own shaky heads at times, but I also fish the Sixth Sense shaky head as well. So it just kind of depends. I've been in the tackle making realm, I guess you want to call it, for a long time. Years and years ago, I got my first jig mold. I got a drop shot mold, and I started pouring some jigs and some drop shot sinkers and stuff like that. And I didn't stick with it for very long. I still had the equipment to do it, but then eventually I decided to pick it back up. And I got a whole bunch more molds and decided that it was definitely something that I enjoy doing. And it was just something that, I felt like I could make YouTube content for as well, which obviously if you go to my channel, you'll see a lot of the tackle making stuff. And Do It Molds has been a really good partner for me for sure. They're a really good sponsor of mine. And that kind of just all happened organically. I was buying my own molds and everything like that, and just putting out the videos because I wanted to put them out. And then, one thing led to another, and now, I am working with them, and it's a really good partnership.
That's good stuff. It's good stuff. Let's talk a little bit about long-term goals. Obviously, Pro Tour is what you want to qualify for. Right now, you're fishing the Big Five. Is there a thought of trying the BAS Opens to make the Elite Series, or?
Yeah, I would love to. My goal is to fish professionally, and like I said in the beginning of this, I feel like there's a couple different avenues that you can take now to fish professionally. I really think that the tried and true, or the traditional way, is through the tournament stuff. And I think that now with social media, I think that is a very relevant option to fish professionally. And when I say fish professionally, I mean fish full time. Like that's your job. You get your income from fishing. So whether or not it's social media or YouTube or through tournaments themselves, I just want to fish. I want to make a living fishing and doing what I love to do. My focus right now, obviously, with all the tournament stuff is, qualifying for one of those tours. And let's just say I had a good year. If it was this year and I qualified, I don't know that I'm ready to make that jump yet. I don't know that, I'm in a financial position in order to make that jump yet with my family and everything like that. So I don't know when that chance would come or will come, if it comes. But if it were to come this year, I don't know that I'd be financially ready to make that kind of a commitment. On the social media side of things, I just love to go fish. And if I was still fishing full time through YouTube and social media and representing different companies, I'd still definitely want to fish tournaments and stuff like that, because I like the competitive part of it. I like having something specific to fish for, which is, the competition of the tournament and trying to win and trying to do well. So I would definitely still want to do some of that. But at the end of the day, my main goal is to just do what I love on a daily basis, and that's fish. So whether it's tournaments or, just through the social media aspect of it, doesn't really matter to me at the end of it all. But, the tournament stuff is my focus right now for sure.
Outstanding. So as far as tournaments the rest of the year, what are the plans?
So it's a little up in the air. So my goal in the beginning, I even put a video out on the whole thing, is my goal in the beginning was to fish the Toyota Series on the Western Division. And that was my main focus. That's what I was going to do. That was what the plan was Western Division, trying to make the championship. And I apologize for that plane right now. I can't do anything about that.
All right.
But that was my goal, was to fish the Western Division Toyota Series and try to make the championship and go back. I think it's at Pickwick this year, and drive back to Pickwick and fish the championship. Well, the first tournament got canceled or postponed at Shasta. Like, I was literally going to be leaving like the next day or the day after when it got postponed. So thankfully I wasn't already driving up there. But then it switched to where me and a buddy of mine decided to go back east and fish the Rayburn Toyota Series. And the reason it worked out so well is they were literally the same weekend, the same dates, everything. All we had to do is basically call MLF and say, hey, can we transfer our entry, get a hotel, and everything was the same. The time off, the dates, everything was the same. So it worked out really well. And since we went out there, he ended up doing pretty well in the event. So he's got good points and is in wanting to fish those events. And I just want to go fish. I just want to compete. So whether it's in California or in Texas or Oklahoma, it doesn't really matter to me. I just want to go fish. So I think that that's probably what we're going to end up doing, is going out and fishing Texoma here in March, and then Rayburn again in April, and then we'll see what the rest of the year looks like. But I think those are going to be, that's about as far as I can plan, because I don't know when the Shasta tournament's going to get made up. And then after that, there's the California Delta in May, and the Delta is a fun place to fish too.
I smell a rat. Do you want to get in on the rat swim bait craze? Check out You Dirty Rat by Trophy Bass Baits, available at Swim Baits Plus. Visit their Instagram account at Swim Baits Plus and find out what the noise is all about.
He's Matt Luna. You can follow him on his YouTube channel and on Instagram, Matt Luna Fishing. He's got a lot of great content. Matt, thanks for being with us today. I really wanted to have you on for quite a while now, and I'm glad we got to do this. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. I'd be happy to come on anytime you need somebody, or if there's something specific that you want to talk about, feel free, and I'll be back on. Thank you for having me.
We'll do that. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
All right.
Wardrobe for the Bass Tour Anglers podcast is provided by Koppel Outfitters. Go have an adventure. Visit them online at www.koppelOutfitters.com and on social media at Koppel Outfitters.